I stood alone in the bridal suite, surrounded by soft candlelight and the scent of roses. My wedding dress clung perfectly to every curve, every seam just right. I should have felt like a princess. Instead, I felt like an orphan. I looked down at my phone again. Still no messages. Nothing from my mom, nothing from my dad, and definitely nothing from Marcus. No, we're on our way, no thinking of you, not even a last-minute excuse. Just silence. 3 days ago, I called them twice. I begged them to come. Mom had sighed like I was asking her to move mountains. She said, "We'll try, honey. But your brother has an investor brunch that weekend. You understand, right? I had offered to pay for the flights. I had already booked the hotel. I even offered to move the ceremony time. Anything. Just show up. Please." But here I was, alone, on my wedding day. There was a knock at the door. Martha, my wedding planner, peeked in with a soft smile. "It's time, Avery. Are you ready?" I nodded, though my body felt hollow. I looked out the window at the garden below. 90 guests seated in neat white chairs. A soft string quartet played in the distance. Everything was perfect, except the 3 empty seats in the front row, reserved for Mom, Dad, and Marcus. Still empty. Still cold. Still shouting the truth. I didn't want to hear they're not coming. I took a breath, tried to stand taller. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I didn't care. But the ache in my chest said otherwise. The doors opened. Everyone stood. Every eye turned to me. I walked down that aisle alone, the dress swishing with each step, my heels sinking slightly into the grass, and every glance from the crowd felt like a tiny needle full of sympathy, full of pity. Some people smiled gently as if trying to say, "You're doing great." Others just whispered behind their hands. I focused on Leo. He was waiting at the altar, standing tall, looking right at me, his face steady and soft. When I reached him, he took my hands without hesitation. "I'm here," he whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. "We're enough." And for a moment I believed him. But deep down, another memory rose up, uninvited and sharp. I was 9. Marcus had won 2nd place in a school science fair. They threw a backyard party for him. Balloons, cake, relatives. I had just gotten 1st place in a citywide art competition. When I told Mom, she said, "That's nice, sweetie," and then went back to frosting Marcus's cake. That night, Dad ruffled my hair and said, "You don't need all the attention. You're independent, Avery. You get it." But I didn't get it. I just got used to it. Used to being the afterthought, the one who didn't need support because I seemed fine. The ceremony moved forward like a blur. I said my vows. I kissed the man I love. I smiled for the photos. I danced under twinkle lights and laughed when Leo spun me too fast. But every now and then, I'd glance at the empty seats, check my phone, wait, hope, and still nothing. No text, no call, no, "We're proud of you," no, "We're sorry." And somewhere between the first dance and the cutting of the cake, something inside me broke clean in half. It wasn't the first time they forgot about me, but it was the last time I let it slide. After the wedding, I couldn't stop thinking about all the other moments they missed. Not just the big ones, not just the wedding, but the ones no one else remembered, except me. I was 7 when I played my first piano recital. I had practiced for weeks. I wore a little blue dress and shaky confidence. When it was over, I walked off the stage holding my tiny trophy, scanning the crowd for familiar faces. They weren't there. When we got home, I showed them the trophy. Mom glanced at it, said, "That's nice, honey," while reheating leftovers. Dad barely looked up from the couch. But the next night, Marcus had a little league game and struck out twice. They brought balloons. At 11, I placed in the regional spelling bee. Marcus got a most improved ribbon in baseball. Guess who got a party? I told myself it didn't matter, but it did. Then came high school. I got accepted into a statewide arts program. Only 10 students made it. It was the first time I saw my name on something big, something official. The award ceremony meant everything to me. I invited them, begged them, circled the date on the fridge. They didn't show. Mom said we had to be at Marcus's mock trial. His team made regionals. I remember sitting alone in that auditorium seat, holding the certificate with both hands, like it might disappear if I blinked too long. That night, I stopped waiting for applause from people who'd never clap for me. I threw myself into school, then into art, then into coding, anything where results spoke louder than relationships. I stopped telling them when I achieved something. Because what was the point, and the more I built, the more invisible I became. At one point, I started believing that maybe that was just my role in the family, the quiet one, the background character, the one who didn't need attention because she seemed fine. But I wasn't fine. One afternoon in college, I broke down in front of Jules. She was my roommate then. I had just finished a huge design project that won a campus award. My parents didn't call. Marcus got a parking ticket, and my mom posted about it on Facebook saying, "Adulting is hard." I laughed so hard, I cried. That's when Jules said it. "You've always been the backup plan for people who never showed up for you." And something about that sentence, God, it hit me like a brick. Because it was true. They didn't just miss things. They didn't see me. Not really. And if they did, they didn't care enough to say it. That's the moment I shifted. Deep down, I think I knew I'd never be enough for them. At least, not in the way Marcus always was. So I stopped chasing it. Not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. I stopped trying to win them over. I stopped inviting them to things. I poured every ounce of effort into building something of my own, not to get their approval, but to prove to myself that I didn't need it. And even though they hurt more than I could ever explain, there was something freeing about that. Because for the first time, I wasn't performing. I was becoming the person I was meant to be. The person I built from the ground up without their hand, without their praise, without their help. And that became my quiet revenge. Success born from silence. Recognition carved from neglect. They thought I'd stay in the shadows forever. But I was just warming up. After I stopped chasing their approval, I poured everything into my work. And I mean everything. No safety net. No handouts. Just sleepless nights, instant ramen, and a laptop that overheated if I ran 2 programs at once. I started a design studio from my apartment, Crescent Creative. No investors, no team, no real plan, just talent drive and a stubborn refusal to quit. My first few clients paid me in exposure. My second few just didn't pay at all. There were months when I didn't know if rent was going to clear. I remember crying on the floor of my kitchen at 2 a.m, surrounded by crumpled invoices and dried up highlighters, wondering if I had made a huge mistake. And still no call from my parents. Not once did they check in. Not even a "how's it going" or "need help." But Marcus, he got a brand new house in the suburbs, 5 bedrooms, open concept, granite countertops, bought with a family investment as Mom called it. I asked once, just once, how they afforded it, and Dad said, "It's not about money, it's about supporting your brother's future," right? Because my future apparently didn't need support. But here's the thing about building something from scratch: when it finally starts working, you know you earned it. And one of the turning points was Leo. I met him at a client's office. I was designing their pitch deck. He was catering the meeting. The first thing he ever said to me was, "That font's terrible." "But you're not." I laughed, and then I realized he was right. About the font and me, Leo didn't care about my resume. He didn't care that I was eating ramen 5 nights a week or that I worked through the weekends. He just showed up. Again and again, and that was something I wasn't used to. He believed in me when even I didn't. He listened. He celebrated every tiny win like it was a world record. When I got my first real 5-figure contract, he cooked me a 5-course dinner using a hot plate and 2 pans, and he never once asked me to be smaller. He just saw me, not as a project, not as an afterthought, as a whole person. With him beside me and Jules in my corner, I got bolder. I raised my rates. I turned down clients who didn't respect my time. I started hiring freelancers, then full-time staff, then a real office. It took 5 years, but we did it. Crescent Creative got acquired for $18 million. 18 million. I sat in the boardroom across from people in tailored suits, and for once, I didn't feel like I was faking it. I felt ready. I signed the papers with steady hands. And when the wire transfer cleared, I checked my phone. Still no message from my parents. No call, no congratulations. No, we're proud of you. But then, my screen lit up. It was a text from my mom. 3 words. Can you help Marcus? That was it. No, how are you? No, we heard the news? No, we're so proud of you. Just another ask. Another expectation that I would somehow fix everything. Because that's what they really thought of me, wasn't it? Not as a daughter, not as a person, but as a resource. I stared at the message until the screen went dark. And for the first time, I didn't cry. I just smiled because I realized something they hadn't yet. They had already lost access to me, and they didn't even know it. After that text, "Can you help Marcus?" I didn't respond. Not immediately. I just sat there staring at the words, thinking about how many times I'd bent over backwards for people who couldn't even be bothered to clap when I won. And that's when I decided something. I wasn't going to chase them anymore. I wasn't going to wait for them to love me the right way. I was going to give myself what they never did: recognition, celebration, joy. So, I bought the car. A Ferrari Roma, ice white, smooth as silk, $240,000 of unapologetic success. I didn't buy it to show off. I bought it because I could. Because I wanted something that didn't ask for anything in return. Something that hummed with the kind of power I had spent my whole life pretending I didn't have. I took exactly 1 photo of it in my driveway. Captioned it, "Silence has its price." I paid it. In full. No tags, no mentions. Just a statement. I didn't expect a reaction, but I got one. Within 48 hours, my phone rang. It was her. My mother. I let it go to voicemail. Then she called again. This time I picked up. Her voice was syrupy sweet. "Hi, honey. I saw your post. We should talk. Maybe a family dinner. We've been meaning to reconnect. Reconnect. Like we were ever connected in the first place." I said sure. Why not? She sounded almost excited. Like maybe things were finally turning around. After I hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. Then I called Jules. When I told her what happened, she didn't even hesitate. "You know what this is," she said. "You're not family to them. You're their emergency fund with a good haircut." I laughed. But deep down it hurt how right she was. Still, I agreed to the dinner, not because I wanted reconciliation, because I wanted clarity. I wanted to hear them say it out loud that I only mattered now because I had something they needed. And maybe in some quiet, self-destructive part of me, I wanted to give them the chance to prove me wrong. Spoiler alert, they didn't. But that comes later. For now, all I'll say is this: I knew what I was walking into. I went anyway, but not unprepared. I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home just before 2. The house looked smaller than I remembered, maybe because I was no longer looking up at it, hoping someone inside would finally see me. I parked the Ferrari dead center, right where Dad's old Mercedes used to sit. Let them see it. Let them feel it. I took a deep breath, slid my phone into my purse, and walked up the steps. The door opened before I knocked. Mom stood there already wearing that tight, performative smile she used at church potlucks. "Avery, sweetie, you look so professional." Inside, the air smelled like lemon cleaner and something forced. Marcus was already at the dining room table. He didn't stand. just gave me a nod like I was late for a meeting. There were folders stacked in front of him. Tabs, charts, spreadsheets. This wasn't a family dinner. This was a pitch. I sat down across from them, keeping my purse on my lap. My fingers tightened around the strap. Dad launched right into it. No warm-up, no small talk. We're glad you're doing well. Truly, but your brother's business has hit a bit of turbulence. Some bad timing, a few slow quarters. Marcus opened a folder and slid a document toward me. It's a small favor, he said. Just a short-term loan, $750,000. I blinked. 750,000. He said it like he was asking me to spot him for lunch. Dad leaned forward, his elbows on the table like a corporate executive pitching synergy. Family helps family. We've always believed in that. I looked at them. Really looked. They weren't ashamed. They weren't even pretending to care why I might say no. They assumed I'd say yes because I was useful now. Not loved, just valuable. I kept my voice calm. Where were you at my wedding? The room went silent. Mom shifted. Marcus stared down at his papers. Dad blinked like he didn't understand the question. I repeated it. Slower this time. My wedding. Where were you? Mom's voice cracked. We had a conflict. Your brother's investor brunch. It was important Marcus cut in. We had clients flying in from New York. You knew that, I nodded slowly. So, that was more important. Dad cleared his throat. It wasn't about importance. It was about timing. I sat back, letting the silence stretch. Marcus finally snapped. This is exactly why people say you're impossible to work with. You take everything personally. You always have. You think everything's about you. He shoved the folder closer to me. We're trying to fix something real here. And you're digging up ancient drama like a teenager. I looked at him, then at the folder, then back at him. And I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it was finally so clear. He didn't see me as a sister. He saw me as a bank. And they were all sitting there waiting for the ATM to approve the transaction. I stood up. No yelling, no dramatic monologue. Just quiet resolve. Before I left, I reached into my purse and placed a small device on the table. A voice recorder. The red light blinked. I looked my father in the eye. Just wanted a record. For clarity. Mom gasped, Avery. But I was already walking out, down the hall, through the door, into the car. The engine purred to life, smooth and confident. And as I pulled out of that driveway, I didn't feel angry. I felt done. I didn't drive straight home after that meeting. I drove to my lawyer's office. 2 hours later, I had signed the paperwork to move $5 million into a private foundation. Fully protected. Irrevocable. Untouchable. The Rivera Creative Fund. Named after the only adult who ever truly saw me when I was young, Ms. Rivera, my high school art teacher. She was the one who stayed after school when my parents forgot to pick me up. The one who framed my first piece and hung it in the main hallway when no one else even noticed I'd won. She changed my life with nothing more than belief. So now I'm changing others with more than just belief. The Rivera Creative Fund exists to give underprivileged girls access to the tools, training, and mentorship they need to pursue careers in media, art, and technology. No strings attached, no family guilt, just opportunity. Real opportunity. And I made sure legally that not 1 cent could ever be accessed by my parents, or Marcus, or anyone connected to them. The next morning, we went live. Press release, foundation website, public records. I posted one photo, me and Miss Rivera at an old gallery show side by side, grinning like fools. Caption, legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you lift up. By noon, it was trending. By nightfall, there were articles. From neglect to impact, a self-made story. One headline read, She built an empire. Now she's investing in the girls nobody saw. Twitter lit up with support. Former classmates shared memories of how I always seemed quiet but driven. One girl from my old school DM'd me, "You're making us all proud, even if your family didn't." Meanwhile, my parents' neighborhood got loud. Neighbors started asking questions, people they go to church with, golf club friends. The whispers grew louder. "Why weren't you at her wedding? Did you know she built that company herself? Why didn't you support her?" Suddenly, the same people who used to nod politely when mom bragged about Marcus weren't nodding anymore. Then the final blow. Marcus's firm filed for bankruptcy. Public record, overextended lines of credit, defaulted contracts, a mess. And I said nothing. Not a text, not a post, not a call. Because this wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about punishment. It was about choosing impact over obligation, legacy over guilt. I could have saved them. Financially, yes. But emotionally, they were already too far gone. So I chose something else, something bigger. And for the first time, that choice didn't come with guilt. Only peace. I thought they'd go quiet after the press hit. I thought maybe, just maybe they'd feel the weight of it. The shame, the consequences. I was wrong. They retaliated. Hard. First came the voicemails. 17 in a single day. My assistant looked at me across her desk and said, "I think your family's unraveling." I checked the transcripts, accusations, guilt trips, legal threats. "You've abandoned your family. You're ruining Marcus's children's lives. You're making us look bad." I forwarded every message to my lawyer and said nothing. Then, Leo came home that night with takeout and a tired look in his eyes. He had seen the articles too. He dropped the bags on the counter, leaned against the wall, and said, "They're spiraling. But honestly, they're just showing who they've always been." He wasn't wrong. 2 days later, Marcus leaked a story to the local paper. He spun it like I was greedy, that I had withheld financial support from my struggling family out of spite. The headline was "Dramatic Tech Millionaire Daughter Turns Back on Family." But the internet doesn't always follow the script. The article backfired fast. The comments were brutal. People asked why my parents didn't attend my wedding, why they ignored me for years, why Marcus needed $750,000 if his firm was supposedly thriving. The paper ended up publishing a follow-up story after a source unidentified, but I have a good guess shared screenshots of Marcus asking for money multiple times over the years. The public saw the pattern, and they saw me. My inbox exploded. Hundreds of messages. Former classmates, teachers, colleagues, strangers. People telling me they believed me, that they had lived it too. That it felt good to see someone finally say no to toxic family cycles out loud and unapologetically. And then, something wild happened. The foundation's donation page started lighting up. First a few $100s, then thousands, then millions. $2 million in public donations in 48 hours, all because the world saw what my family tried to hide. That sometimes the black sheep is just the one who got away. But the part that hit the weirdest was when Marcus showed up at my office. Not in person. He sent his twin sons, with handmade cards, crayon drawings and all. Inside, in messy handwriting, it said, "We miss you, Aunt Avery. Please come back." But the handwriting, it wasn't theirs. It was his. He wrote them. He wrote them himself, and that was the moment I realized they weren't just spiraling. They were desperate. A week after the cards arrived, I got an email. Subject line 1, "Last chance to talk from Dad. He wanted to meet. Neutral ground. A public place." I chose a coffee shop downtown, one with glass walls and plenty of witnesses. I pulled up in the Ferrari, not because I needed to prove anything, but because I was done shrinking for people who only saw me when I made noise. They were already inside when I walked in. Dad stood up first. Mom gave me a strained smile like we were about to make small talk over pie. I didn't sit. Not yet. Dad cleared his throat and said, "We made mistakes." Then he paused. "We weren't perfect parents. We know that. But we want to make things right. As a family." For a second, I just stared at him. I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe maybe. They finally saw it. Finally saw me. But then mom jumped in. We don't need to go into the past. What matters is how we move forward. And there it was. Skip the accountability. Fast forward to the forgiveness. I sat down across from them, calm, collected, done playing the daughter who bends. If you're serious about making things right, I said, here's what that looks like. I slid a folded note across the table. Start therapy. Together. Apologize. In writing. Not just to me, but publicly after what you allowed Marcus to leak. And lastly, no money. No strings. No expectations. Just accountability. Dad looked like I'd slapped him. Mom went stiff like the idea of owning anything was personally offensive. Dad finally said, "That's not really necessary, is it?" I didn't flinch. "It is to me," Mom's voice got sharp. "We said we were sorry. That should be enough." I stood. "You didn't say sorry. You said you made mistakes. You said you wanted to move on. But none of that says you're willing to do the work." I looked down at them. Two people who had spent my entire life choosing silence, then resentment, then entitlement. And now they were choosing the same thing again. I walked out. No big speech, no goodbye. Just quiet shoes on tile and the sound of the door closing behind me. I got in the car and pulled out my phone. Texted Jules. "It's done." She called immediately. I told her everything start to finish. She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She didn't say, "Maybe they'll come around." She just said this: "They taught you how to disappear, but you taught yourself how to shine." And I swear, that was the first time I actually felt it. Not like a win, not like a mic drop, but like freedom, like I'd finally stopped begging for something they never intended to give me. Like I'd closed a chapter and didn't need to reread it ever again. Thanksgiving looked different this year. The table was longer, the room was louder, and the warmth was real. Leo made roasted duck instead of turkey, because why not? Jules brought 3 pies and 0 boundaries. My foundation team came too. A few of our scholarship recipients joined us, including Maya. Maya was glowing. A few weeks earlier, her short film had won a local award. She screened it after dinner right in my living room. Just a portable projector, a white sheet, and 20 people leaning forward in awe. The film was raw, real, quiet. It told the story of 3 generations of women who kept their dreams in drawers until someone finally handed them a key. When the credits rolled, Maya looked at me like she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She whispered, "You made this possible." But I didn't. She did. All I did was open the door. That night, I stood in the kitchen, sipping wine, watching people who had chosen me. People who didn't want anything from me except presence, connection, truth. That's what family means now. A week later, I was walking through downtown when I saw them. My parents, crossing the street ahead of me. They looked smaller, older, like time had moved on without asking permission. We made brief eye contact. I didn't stop. I didn't wave. I just nodded, then kept walking. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't owe them anything more. They taught me what love isn't. My chosen family taught me what it is. And I'll keep building that one girl, one story, one future at a time. If you've ever been the forgotten one, the backup plan, or the black sheep, I want to hear your story too. Drop it in the comments. Let's build something stronger together. And hey, if you connected with this, we post new stories like this every single day. See you in the next one.